Hey guys, welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm of course Paul Glasgow here, the one and only Truth Pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Today I'm going to peel back the curtain as much as I can on our good friend Thomas Crooks, who took the shot at Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania on the slopey roof.
We were at a barbecue and it was getting crazy. When he started running at me, reached for the back of his pants, I just pulled out my firearm. Once the target was down so that he's not a threat anymore, I just called you guys.
The majority of programs immediately exclude you if you happen to be in a gun-free zone at the time that the incident occurs.
The strike force was called. If that doesn't happen in this case, he's still sitting at Rikers Island today.
Lawyers are like real-life superheroes because you can give people a chance to really get a second chance in life.
Folks, I use attorneys on retainer, and I suggest you do too if you carry a firearm or you do anything to protect your family. Use my code FTATF for a discount at sign up. We've got some breaking news from Headline USA on Crooks' internet search history, and trust me, it's wild. From Game of Thrones to guess what? The State Department. What was this guy really up to? On July 3rd, 2024, Thomas Michael Crooks climbed a super slopey roof in Butler, Pennsylvania, and fired 8 shots, allegedly, supposedly, alone, by himself, at Donald J. Trump at a rally, grazing the former president's ear, of course the current president now, killing 1 spectator and injuring 2 others. A year later, the FBI still couldn't pin down a motive, and the public is left with more questions than answers, as usual, per the FBI and the CIA, if you would like to include them in this. Was Crooks a lone wolf, a political zealot, or something else entirely? Now, Headline USA got their hands on an exclusive release of Crooks' internet search from his time at the Community College of Allegheny County, giving us somewhat of a rare glimpse into his mind if you can determine that based on an internet search history. Now, they kind of backwards engineered their way into his internet search history. There was let's just call it a messy bucket load of code that was released to some other news outlets a few months ago. And the odd thing is, while they did reverse engineer his search history from this, they didn't release what Headline USA is releasing. Now, just to kind of give you a general idea of what they're pulling from, this is only his internet search history from the Allegheny Community College, right? It's while he was using their Wi-Fi. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like they have all of his countless hours of internet searching and use at home. That's not a part of this. This is simply when he was there over about a 2-year period of time until he graduated. So anything associated with the Wi-Fi connection at that college that Crooks had access to as far as his traffic online is how they pulled it out. And again, it's dumped out in essentially, I'm oversimplifying, but a bunch of code, and you have to reverse engineer your way into determining what that actual search history was, pulling it from that code. Now, at first glance, you're going to see your basic, typical 20-year-old search stuff, binging on game sites like Play Simple, Discord, Xbox, Game Pass. They determined that he was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, hitting up ESPN and Steelers fan pages. He even visited a South African sports betting site. That's kind of weird. Now, during this time, he was also checking out some of the mainstream, quote, news sites like CNN, Wall Street Journal, and Al Jazeera, right? But even that's not that crazy. Remember, he made some Democratic campaign donation to the DNC of $15. So, I mean, 20-year-old, not really sure about politics, right? So he's probably dabbling online. Of course, we're rolling into primary season with the presidential election. So, I mean, it's not shocking to me that a 20-year-old would deviate from his gaming sites and things like that to maybe dabble into a couple of news sites. Heck, maybe, I mean, he was at a college, right? It's likely he overheard people talking, some of the little hippies and liberals over there talking about politics. So he probably jumped on just to see what they were talking about. So I don't find it unusual that he dabbled into some of those, quote, political sites like that. But here's where things got a little weird, and I think noticeably weird, and nobody's calling this out, and I don't quite understand it. I think I'm right about what I'm about to tell you and why it's weird. On October 10th, 2023, right after browsing a Game of Thrones fan site, Crooks visited the State Department's website. Now, that's not that odd, right? I don't find it to be that odd. He visited it just once at 12:50 p.m. that day. One visit to the State Department site. That one random visit alone probably, I mean, it's a little unusual because it's outside of his normal viewing stuff online, but it wouldn't have piqued my interest quite so much if what follows hadn't followed. Almost immediately after that, in late 2023, Crooks starts getting secretive. He now starts using VPNs, encrypted email services like MailFence, and privacy tools to cover his tracks. This is immediately after making that one visit to the State Department's website. Not saying something happened then, but you can't ignore the oddness of a complete change of somebody's online behavior after one visit. Now, maybe the State Department visit doesn't mean anything. Maybe the visit to their website is completely not related to his internet history. But there's no doubt about it. From that point, that's October 10th, from that point on towards the end of 2023, I mean, it was an immediate change. His search history changed completely. No more visits to those other sites, and all of his sites or his visits online were VPN protected, and again, using the mail services that covered up his tracks. Why the change? What changed? Again, if we disregard the State Department site, something changed. If we want to ignore that, cool. Go ahead and ignore the State Department visit that one time. But what else happened? Something else happened, because it's very unusual and very unlikely that a person, especially a 20-year-old that is doing the normal type of surfing and things like that on the internet, suddenly change their entire composure of how they handle themselves online. Completely. Not even slightly. Not even incorporating a couple of other sites that might look weird while visiting the other sites. Completely changing search habits on the internet. Now, by January 24th of 2024, this is the year that he actually took the shot at Trump, his activity spikes again. 1,364 searches in one day in the brief time he was at that community college. Understand, we're not talking about seconds online. We're talking about 1,364 different individual searches online. And then guess what? Completely goes dark, hiding behind encryption, and there's no visible evidence of any more traffic online. Now remember, he didn't take a shot at Trump for another 6 months, but he certainly hid his tracks during that 6 months, and there was really nothing that we can even point at that shows anything. Now what we do know is only a few months later he bought ammo, a ladder, and took aim at Trump. Now the FBI says he acted alone, but his internet search history looks like that might not be the case, right? In fact, we even did a story, this was towards the end of last summer, I believe, where they found, remember, Crooks had at least 2 cell phones that we know of, and there was some discrepancies as far as those phones being pinged at different locations, and multiple discrepancies actually. You remember one of his phones was actually pinged a block or 2 away from the Justice Department and the FBI building in Washington, D.C. before the Trump assassination attempt, right? You'll also notice that some of those same phones that had been being pinged right around Crooks in Crooks' general vicinity, including in Washington, D.C., were also pinged in Butler, Pennsylvania, where, remember, Crooks made that trip a few days leading up to the July 13th assassination attempt. He made some trips to Butler, Pennsylvania. That phone is being pinged there. That phone stopped pinging anything on July 12th, the day before Crooks took his shot at Donald Trump. Now, a quick side note and point that I'd like to make here. This is a story that I actually didn't catch when it came across at the time. I guess I was right in the middle of something else. But in February of this year, New York Post put out a report and cited sources claiming that the FBI obstructed inquiries into possible accomplices based on various types of data regarding Crooks. Now, that's been denied by the FBI and the CIA, but let's remember who was running the FBI, Christopher Wray, at the time. Of course he denied it. Christopher Wray could have his fingerprints all over a Trump assassination attempt, and still he would deny it, right? He hated Trump. So anytime Christopher Wray's name comes up as disputing something that we're not sure about, I have to assume he's lying. Now, I have to repeat again, the shift in Thomas Crooks' online behavior, moving to a VPN and reducing his online visibility after a single visit to a State Department-related sites does raise questions. It's extremely unusual for someone to abruptly change their digital footprint all of a sudden, just significantly at that point, like change it completely. Again, as I stated, it's one thing to add a couple new sites and keep visiting the old sites, but there was a significant change, as if somebody else was logging in his place. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what it gave the impression of, well, this is a different person, because the online activities certainly showed a different person. Now, remember, he did all kinds of searches on Lee Harvey Oswald, bomb-making materials, all kinds of stuff like that. Remember he had the bomb-making, or the makeshift bomb in his vehicle that didn't even work? So the guy had other plans, and he had a reason for wanting to change it. Did he just change his stuff, his online presence, because on October, 2024, he just suddenly decided he was going to take a shot at Trump? Was that when he made I mean, it could be that simple. I'm being very honest here. Could be that simple. He decided in October 2024, I'm going to take a shot at Trump. Maybe he did, because everything changed at that point regarding Krooks. In closing, I just want to mention that I don't think we're any closer to knowing who Krooks is, and I find it extremely odd that we continue to see, under Trump no doubt, right, what appears to be, no accusations from me here, but what appears to be a continued cover-up. Why don't they talk more about this guy? Doesn't Donald Trump want to know more about Thomas Crooks? You would think he would. The official story says Crooks was just some lone nut, but his search history, gaming, news, sports betting, and some mysterious State Department visit, it paints a weird picture, a very unusual picture. Remember, we're talking about a 20-year-old here. We're not talking about some butthurt 40-year-old liberal with blue hair. We're talking about a 20-year-old kid. Suddenly has this kind of massive shift in his online activity, and we're supposed to go, oh, that's normal for a 20-year-old. Was Crooks some kind of a mastermind, or did he just snap? Or was somebody involved that was showing him the way, teaching him the way? I'm not even going to go into all the holes on the day of the assassination attempt. That has to be explained more than anything. There's way too many holes in it. We got a guy up on a roof that for 35 minutes people are yelling, there's a guy up there, he's got a gun. I mean, that's just one example of the probably 24 that nobody has answered yet. And I don't see anyone being held accountable. What, a couple of Secret Service people get some time off? I think that's the worst that happened in all of this. As I always state, guys, asking questions. We have to be asking questions. You know who wants this to go away and for us to stop asking questions? Apparently, the Secret Service, the FBI, and the CIA. When those three get together and decide they don't want us asking questions or getting answers, it tells me I need to keep asking questions and we need answers. Comment down below and tell me what you think, because I'm curious what your thoughts are. You guys have provided some awesome feedback. And by the way, speaking of feedback, don't forget I've set up a telephone number where you can call and leave a voicemail, or you can text me. That number is 202-869-2527. Again, 202-869-2527. Call at any time, text at any time. Now, when you call, don't expect to get me because I don't answer the phone. But you can leave a voicemail, or again, shoot a text to me. Now, if you have something you want to share with me, do the same. But if you want to comment on this story, please comment down below and give me your thoughts.